Hi guys, it's Mrs. Payne, and I thought today instead of reading a book with you, I'm going to share a little bit of one of my hobbies that makes Mrs. Payne Mrs. Payne. It's creating floor cloths. Some people call them canvas mats. Some people refer to them as pre-tile or pre-linoleum. So here we go. The first thing I did many years ago, I took my kids to Old Sturbridge Village where we went through a lot of the buildings and I started noticing mats on the floor. Pretty plain, but they were interesting to me. So looking at them and realizing that they were canvas and being a crafty person, I knew that it was something I could do. So I went home and I did a lot of research on it. And even back then, for the kids who have me, I did my clothes reading strategies on it because I knew, looking at all the papers that I had researched, I didn't want to go back and reread everything, so I highlighted the important details. Once I highlighted the important details and realized what I needed to purchase in order to get my new hobby going, I went out and I bought canvas. Now, canvas years ago was used for the sails on ships. And the way this came about is back in the George Washington time, back in the 1700s to the 1800s, people didn't have carpeting in their floor. Something I think we take for granted, and they didn't have anything and their feet got cold. So what they started doing is tearing the old sails off ships and putting them on their floors. Nothing fancy about them, no colors to it, but it kept their feet warm. As time went on and people started to come up with paint, then they started painting them. Very basic. They started out with green because it reminded them of bringing the outdoors indoors. Once they progressed with the paint, they started painting them with not real fancy designs, but they would use stencils. And here are some real basic stencils that Mrs. Payne, I bought some and I have made some. And you just fill in with the paint around those areas. So the first thing that I needed to do is to find some place that would sell canvas. And I don't do anything in small amounts. So when I buy canvas, I buy like 20 yards at a time. Now think about that. This is 1 yard. And I buy at least 20 of these. Now when I first started doing this, I was so excited. I didn't think about the fact that canvas was cotton. So right away, I just started cutting, measuring to the different sizes I thought I might like, and I started painting. Well, when the paint dried, I noticed that my mats were shrinking because cotton shrinks. And I'll tell you what, that's not a mistake I ever made again. So we learn by our mistakes. We know that mistakes aren't bad. So I learned from my mistake. So I used what I had. I just made smaller mats. And with my reading, I realized that there's an awful lot of preparation work that goes into mat making before I can get to the fun part. And to this day, the prepping part of it is not my favorite. So to prep, what I need to do is I need to prime it, not with this. I need to prime it with 2 coats of primer. Once that dries and I do the front and back of my canvas, then I have to put a base coat on it. And I usually use a light colored base coat. In fact, I have some mats over here that I've started. And these have already been primed. And they have a layer of base coat on it. So once I do one more layer of base coat, they're going to be ready to go, and then the fun begins. But when I do my canvas, now I know that I have to wash it because cotton shrinks. After I wash it, I iron it. Don't get all the wrinkles out, but I kind of like that because I'm more into the early American. So I like that. And I also finish my edges on the back because I think it gives it a neater and more professional look because I do sell these. Now these are ready to design. And when I'm thinking about designing something, there's a lot of resources that I use. I have used quilting books. I have used calendars. I have used anything with a picture on it that inspires me. And I also do things just off the top of my head. Things come to mind and I just start creating. When I put my drawing on my canvas, I always use the trusty pencil. Because with a pencil, I can always erase my mistakes if I choose to and keep going. So you're going to notice, hope I don't lose you, but I'm going to take you over to my table. I have set up some of the things that I use. So these are quilting squares. So if I decide I want to make a canvas that looks kind of like a quilt, I have these patterns that I can use. I also have lots of paint. Paint in all different colors. And this is just a very little part of the paint that I have. I'll take you over and show you the other. And I also have a variety of brushes, depending on how detailed my drawing is. I have sponges that I use for various techniques. If I want to do more of a primitive pattern where I need to tape it out, I use my tape. I also have a color chart that helps me sometimes when I want to see what paints are in the same family. So over here are some of the canvases that I have prepared, ready to go. And I also have wood. That's going to be a sign. But I can make barn quilts, and I can just make little signs. So once you find something you love, you can take it in all kinds of different directions. Now I'm going to share just a few of my quilts with you, or my mats. And these mats are at least 10 years old. These are actual mats that are in my house, on my floor. And what I love about them is all I have to do is wipe them off. They don't peel, they don't chip. And down here you're going to notice I have a whole container of mats that I've been working on. Behind there, we'll get to that on another day, that's soap that I make. This is another floor mat that I have by my front door. And this is another mat that I have going upstairs. I also have a few barn quilts that I'm waiting for Mr. Payne to frame it. That's part of a sunflower. and part of a snowflake. So that's just a small part of my world. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope that you find something in your world around you. Whoops. That interests you, that can become your hobby. So on those rainy days when we can't get outside and we need something to do, make a little workshop area. I'm fortunate enough that I have a beautiful workshop that Mr. Payne made for me. And get busy. Talk to you later. Bye.